The desert stretched endlessly, its vast red canyons cutting jagged scars across the horizon. The sun was dipping low, turning the rocks into fire as the shadows crept longer. A group of strangers had gathered for what was supposed to be a weekend of adventure, an adrenaline-pumping whitewater rafting trip followed by guided exploration of the remote Canyonlands. For most of them, it was a break from their routine lives, a way to feel free under the endless Utah sky. But none of them could have known that this land was cursed long before their arrival, marked with ancient blood and haunted by spirits too angry to rest. What began as an adventure into nature's beauty soon became a journey into its darkest heart. Among the group was Lauren, a woman in her late 20s who had signed up for the trip to escape the monotony of her office job. She had a calm aura, though her eyes carried a loneliness she tried hard to mask. There was Matthew, a cocky thrill-seeker, always looking for the next rush. Rachel, a shy college student hoping to build her confidence. Derek, a divorced father in search of distraction, and Andrea, strong-willed and sarcastic, who claimed she didn't believe in ghost stories or native curses. Their guide, Blake, a local man with rugged features and years of experience, knew these canyons like the back of his hand, or so he thought. What none of them knew was that the canyon had been the site of brutal massacres centuries earlier. Blood had soaked the rocks, and the spirits of the fallen had never left. The first day felt almost perfect. The river carried them deep into the canyon, its waters roaring and spraying, adrenaline rushing through their veins. They laughed together, bonded over shared fear and excitement, and that night around the campfire, Blake told them a story. His voice was low, steady, but there was a shadow behind his words. He spoke of a mining company that once came to the canyon decades ago, hungry for gold. The miners had disturbed something sacred, something buried. One by one, they vanished, some driven mad, some torn apart in ways no wild animal could have done. The survivors swore they heard voices in the wind and saw figures in the rocks that moved when no one was watching. Blake chuckled as if dismissing his own tale, but Lauren noticed his eyes linger on the darkness just beyond the fire's glow, as though he knew more than he dared admit. That night, the desert was far from silent. Lauren woke to whispers, soft and raspy, curling through the air. At first, she thought it was the wind slipping through the rocks, but when she sat up, she saw a shape standing at the canyon's edge, a tall, shadowy figure with hollow eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She gasped, and in that instant, the figure vanished. Her heart pounded, but she convinced herself it had been a trick of exhaustion, a dream, nothing more. She did not tell the others. By the second day, strange things began happening. Derek swore he heard his daughter's voice echoing across the rocks, though she lived hundreds of miles away. Rachel claimed she saw someone walking alongside them on the cliffs, though no tracks were found. At first, the group laughed it off as paranoia, but as the sun fell and night returned, the canyon changed. Shadows deepened unnaturally, shapes shifted in the rocks, and their campfire seemed too small against the looming darkness. Blake grew uneasy, checking the area more often, though he brushed off their questions. It was as if the land itself was watching them, waiting. The first death came on the third night. Matthew, restless and irritated, wandered from camp despite Blake's warning. He claimed he heard laughter, a woman's voice calling him deeper into the canyon. Hours passed, and when the others searched, they found him at the bottom of a narrow ravine, body broken on the rocks. His eyes, however, were wide open, filled with terror, as if he had seen something unspeakable in his final moments. Blake insisted it was an accident. Matthew had slipped, but Lauren felt the air grow heavier, colder. The canyon was claiming them. Fear seeped into the group. Every night, they heard whispers. Sometimes, the voices called their names. Rachel broke down in tears, insisting something was following her, that she felt icy fingers brush against her shoulder in the dark. Andrea tried to stay strong, but even she grew pale when she saw claw-like scratches etched into the rocks near their camp, marks too deep to be human. Derek stopped sleeping altogether, haunted by the voice of his daughter, which grew louder each night, begging him to join her. The canyon was wearing them down, feeding on their minds, their fears, their weaknesses. On the fourth night, everything unraveled. The group awoke to screams. Rachel's tent ripped apart, her body missing. They found blood leading toward the cliffs, but no sign of her. Andrea accused Blake of hiding the truth, of bringing them here despite knowing it was cursed. Blake finally admitted that locals avoided this part of the canyon, that old stories spoke of guardians, vengeful spirits bound to the land, hunting anyone who dared trespass. He had thought they were just legends, until now. Andrea exploded with rage, and before long, chaos spread through the group. They turned on each other, paranoia twisting their minds. The canyon didn't just kill, it corrupted BY Dawn. Only 3 remained: Lauren, Andrea, and Blake. Derek was gone, lured by the phantom voice of his daughter into the depths of the canyon. They never found his body. Andrea wanted to push forward, to find a way out, but Blake argued that the canyon wouldn't let them leave. That was when Lauren saw it again, the figure with hollow eyes, standing motionless on the ridge above them, watching. She pointed, but when Andrea and Blake looked, it had vanished again. Lauren began to understand. The canyon wasn't haunted by one spirit, but by many, a legion bound together in hatred. They were everywhere, in every shadow, every whisper, every gust of wind. That night, the canyon consumed Andrea. She vanished during a violent sandstorm, her screams drowned out by the howling wind. When it cleared, only Lauren and Blake remained. Exhausted, broken, and terrified, they tried to flee, but every path twisted back into the canyon. The rocks shifted, landmarks disappeared, as if the canyon itself was alive, trapping them in a maze of stone and darkness. Blake grew desperate, but Lauren, though terrified, clung to a sliver of determination. She refused to let the canyon claim her, even as the spirits closed in.